Hello and welcome. We are discussing issues of transgenders in a series of conversations. In the previous episode, we discussed issues of transgenders, which are very basic. In this episode, we are going to discuss issues of transgenders with reference of crime and criminality. We have with us Dr. Sharanjit Kaur, who is a professor of law at the Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, Punjab, based in Patiala. Prior to this, Professor Sharanjit was working with different colleges offering courses and degrees in law. She is a visiting faculty at the Punjab Jail Training School, Patiala, and imparts training in the field of criminal law to prison officials. She has written books on anti-terror laws in India, gender justice, First Information Report, human rights concern in the age of insurgency and terrorism. Her interest areas are quite wide, which includes criminal law, gender justice, anti-terror law, property law, and contract law. Welcome, Professor Sharanjit.
Thank you so much, sir.
So, when we talk about transgenders, if we want to discuss crime with reference of transgenders, so how will you define this intersection, crime and transgenders?
Crime or criminality impacts each one of us. Men, women, transgenders are impacted by crime in one form or the other. To answer your question, I would reflect back to the colonial times when the British passed a law called the Criminal Tribes Act 1871, by which they tried to criminalize the transgenders. The transgenders, if they were found singing or dancing on public places, they were punished, and the maximum punishment could even extend to 2 years. When the country gained independence, this Criminal Tribes Act 1871 was repealed. Now, coming to the present times, we can look at transgenders as a victim of crime and as an offender in a crime. So, transgender can be a victim, and the transgender can also be an offender. So, the criminal justice system looks at the transgender population from these two angles.
So, it means at one level, transgenders are like any other person who can be on either side of the crime. But the second part is that if something is happening to them just because of being transgenders, then it is a different issue. This is what you are saying?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, when we talk about transgender, what kind of sexual violence they face, if they face? I know that it's a funny question. We are living in a society which has a lot of sexual violence, so they must be facing some kind of violence. What makes them different with reference of this sexual violence?
The transgender community is vulnerable to sexual abuse and violence, and there have been studies throughout our country where the percentage of transgenders who have been inflicted with sexual violence has been studied, and the percentage appears to be very, very high. But unfortunately, when we look at the substantive criminal laws dealing with crime against human body or sexual crime, our laws are leaning more in favor of women being a victim of a sexual crime. And to add insult to the injury, if a transgender person who is a trans woman, she's molested in a public place or in a railway station or at a bus stand, and she goes to the local police station and wants to file a complaint, she's often mocked. She's told that you are a transgender. How can you be sexually molested?
So, when people approach the justice delivery system with this kind of complaints that he or she has been abused, sexually abused, there are procedures to make sense of it, whether the person is an ideal victim or falls in the category, what kind of evidence, witnesses are there. So, how do these things happen with reference of transgenders?
Sir, to answer your question, I would reflect to the legal mechanism first. Now, whenever a crime against a transgender takes place, a sexual offense is taking place, we have to reflect to the laws that we have. The Indian Penal Code 1860 deals with sexual crime against women, and be it the offense of rape or molestation or voyeurism or sexual harassment, the law is very, very clear that only a woman can be raped, only a woman can be molested, only a woman can be sexually abused. So when our laws are putting things in a very straitjacket formula, the trans woman does not have any recourse. To add to what I've just said, in the Indian Penal Code, the expression man and woman have been defined under section 10. Now, under section 10, a man is a biological human being of any age and a woman is a biological female human being of any age. Section 10 is nowhere talking about a transgender person. Hence, the legal limitations are existing, due to which even if the transgender is able to approach the police station people fail to put his or her claim in a specific section of the Indian Penal Code.
So, when we talk about the transgender population or the community, we have seen that their issues and they themselves have been ignored by the main stakeholders, whether they are institutions of the state or of the society. So, how do you make sense of it? That is crime related to their irresponsiveness or not?
Sir, I do not agree with you. Crime is not related to the irresponsiveness on the part of the transgenders. It is more because of the fact that our legal mechanism, our substantive as well as procedural laws are not identifying that we also have a particular set of population who do not fit in the binary distinction of men and women. We had a substantive criminal law amendment in 2013 after Nirbhaya gang rape case. In 2018 again we had the Criminal Law Amendment Act after the Kathua gang rape case. We made our criminal laws more harsh as far as rape is concerned. But till 2018 we could not address the problem that even the transgender women are getting molested, they are getting sexually assaulted. We are not putting them in any bracket. Here there is a ray of hope in some special legislations that we have. Now we have one law which is the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act 2012. This law is a promising law for the simple reason that it is gender neutral, and under this law even a trans child can have legal remedy. Second is the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2015. This law again talks about children. It is nowhere talking about a male child or a female child. So there are special laws which are receptive to trans children, but when we look at the larger picture, whether it is the Indian Penal Code or the Code of Criminal Procedure for that matter, the word trans person is not specifically included.
So if it is confined to the children part only, so as a child, most of the transgenders struggle to identify themselves. They struggle with the institutions they are studying in, they struggle with the families they are coming from. It is at the later age, when they are adults, that they confront all these things consciously. So it means what you suggested, that the law is not properly equipped to handle their issues.
So in a way, the laws that are very, very basic, for example, the Indian Penal Code or the Code of Criminal Procedure, they are relying on the binary distinction between man and woman. But when we look at the laws that have come in the recent past, keeping in mind the fact that a male child can also be sexually abused, the laws have become gender neutral. So when we look at the gender neutrality of the law, there is no good reason to exclude trans children from the protective umbrella of these legislations.
So when we talk about sexual violence, the important variable that is under discussion is about reporting and non-reporting. Is that variable equally applicable to transgender community or not?
It has been seen that the transgender person who is getting sexually abused has the initial hiccups. Because
like any other human beings, or there are additional hiccups?
Additional hiccups for the simple reason that they have never been included in the mainstream society. So they think many a times
So their issues are less articulated.
They are less articulated, and they find it very, very difficult to approach the police station. Even if they muster up the courage and go to the local police station, there again, the police people lack empathy towards them. On the contrary, there are reported instances where they have been mocked at, where they have been asked that you are a transgender, how can you be raped? So this leads to a lot of distrust towards the criminal justice administration system, because at the very first step of lodging an FIR, their right to lodge the FIR is many a times denied.
What kind of preventive initiatives are required to address this kind of discrimination or bias against the transgenders?
Sir, in our country, the police personnel are getting sensitized on this very crucial issue, that it is not just a female who can be sexually abused. Throughout our country, we are having training programs where crime against transgender, how to address issues with regards to sexual violence against transgenders are highlighted, and the police people are sensitized. They are told that despite the fact that IPC talks about man or a woman, but if a transgender comes to the police station with a case of sexual abuse, then the police personnel can ask him or her how she identifies himself or herself. If she feels that I'm a trans woman, then the benefits which are given to a victim of sexual crime, a female victim of sexual crime, should also be given to the trans woman. So we are having these training programs across the length and breadth of our country.
So we know that we have constitutional protections as defined by the Constitution, whether it is fundamental rights or it is directive principles and so on. Despite that, there is discrimination against transgenders. They have all those rights which are extended to every citizen. So as citizens, they have those rights. So do we need any kind of mechanism in place so that their rights are ensured?
I personally feel that the 2019 legislation did bring about a lot of respite to this section of the population, but change has to begin. And this change cannot be only from the perspective of lawmaking or the government bodies. Common people have to address the issue of transgenders. Instead of excluding them, we have to approach them with an inclusiveness. And once this is done, then many issues can be eradicated.
So one is at the social level, that the society need to be conscious. Society need to be empathetic towards people who are seemingly different from the mainstream. And then the other level is the legal procedure. If there is a social bias against people, if there is a social phenomena against people, if people are discriminated at social level, then there need to be a legal protection for them. What kind of legal protections are needed which are not available in the present legal system?
Sir, I strongly feel that the Indian Penal Code 1860 needs to be amended, because in the definition of a man and women, there needs to be an insertion with regards to transgenders. This is something which is of utmost importance. And secondly, wherever we are talking about crime against women or sexual violence against women, the trans woman should also be included in that category, because it is high time. Why is a section of the community not given the privileges which are available to a women victim of sexual offense, but the same are not available to a trans woman? So we need to change our Indian Penal Code 1860 and make necessary amendments so that trans women are also within the protective umbrella.
You have defined two things. One, that we need society which is empathetic and which is trying to understand differences represented by transgenders. And other thing, that we need amendments in the law so that their issues are appropriately addressed. And the judiciary is custodian of rights of people. They are part of the society too. So is there some gap? What is their response towards the issue of transgenders? Judiciary's response.
As we all know that judiciary plays a very, very important role in ensuring that the fundamental rights bestowed on us are actually enjoyed by us. So with regards to the transgender community, we had very significant judgments by the topmost court of our country, the Supreme Court of India, starting with the Nalsa judgment, where the Supreme Court very specifically, assertively said that every individual has the right of self-identity. And we have to move beyond the traditional binary distinctions of male and female. Plus, we have to identify and address that a third gender is also there, and the third gendered people are also having equal rights at par with other male and female human beings.
Just help me understand the main features of that judgment.
In this significant judgment, the Supreme Court addressed that the third gender also exists, and it is the duty of the government to ensure that the third gender gets the recognition in each and every aspect of life, and the rights which are available to other people are also made available to the third gender community. Moving further, the case of Navtej Singh Johar is also very important in this regard, because in this case, Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code was decriminalized if the sex is taking place between consenting adults. So, consensual sexual relationship between consenting adults was decriminalized. Moving further in this direction, any discussion would be incomplete without a reference to the Puttaswamy judgment, which very prominently talked about the right to privacy. So, right to privacy also includes the right to recognition, self-recognition, whether I recognize myself as a transgender or I recognize myself as a trans woman or trans man. So, these three judgments are very, very significant whenever we discuss the needs or the rights of the third gender community.
So, what kind of steps have been taken by the national government and the state governments to ensure that the promises of these judgments are delivered to people?
The different state governments have done a remarkable job, starting with Odisha. Odisha was the first state which started providing pension and housing facilities to the transgender people. Similarly, in Hyderabad, there is a police station in Becholi where a help desk was created for the transgender community. So, moving further, the Ministry of Social Justice has also come up with the Garima Grah Yojana, under which the government is required to provide shelter homes to the transgender community, because as we have been discussing that many transgenders are either thrown out of their homes and are homeless and have to live on the streets. So the Garima Grahas are meant to provide shelter to these transgender people, and in the states of Maharashtra, Odisha, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, West Bengal, initiatives under this particular scheme have also been taken. Furthermore, the government has also launched a SMILE scheme. Now, the main objective of the SMILE scheme is to ensure that the transgenders are not earning a living by begging, and they are given vocational trainings so that they can earn their daily bread and butter through respectable means. Another important scheme is PM Daksh. Now, PM Daksh scheme also aims at rehabilitation and reintegration of the transgender community. Moving on, Ayushman Bharat scheme provides insurance facilities to the transgender community, also helps them whenever they have to undergo a sex reconstruction surgery. So, these are some of the prominent schemes of the government in order to rehabilitate the transgenders and to reintegrate them to the society.
So these judgments that you cited, they were very important to create a kind of roadmap for a federal law. So can you explain that law and the impact of that law?
Before explaining the law, I would like to draw your attention to certain international conventions which are also to be incorporated whenever we dwell upon transgenders. We have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which says that all human beings are born free and equal. Then we have the International Covenant for Civil and Political Rights.
Hmm.
We have the International Covenant for Cultural and Social Rights.
Hmm.
Plus, we also have the Convention Against Torture.
Hmm.
So, all these international conventions are not merely for men and women, they are for transgenders alike.
They are for everybody.
Everybody.
They are universal in their nature.
Yes. Specifically, we have the Yoga Karta principles.
Hmm.
Now, the Yoga Karta principles are specific in the sense because they talk about gender identity, right of self-recognition, and legal recognition of the rights of the transgender persons.
So it means the international conventions and the court judgments informed the recent law about transgenders.
Yes, sir. In 2019, the Parliament enacted a specific legislation called the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act. Now, this law is very special because this law caters to the various needs of the transgenders, starting from getting a certificate of identity to welfare measures to the education and reintegration, and it also provides various offences and penalties against transgenders and the punishment for the same.
So it means an individual is entitled to get it mentioned in the certificate, in the passport, whether it is ration card or it is Aadhaar card or it is driving license. The person is entitled to get it mentioned that I am a transgender.
It is a discretion for the transgender person. If he deems fit, he can apply to the district magistrate for a certificate of identity. Because once the trans person gets a certificate of identity and she happens to be a trans woman, then whatever welfare scheme is available for trans women or for women at large can be made available to her. She is not supposed to run from pillar to post merely to assert that I am a trans woman. If she has the identity card, that identity card would very well reflect that she, being a trans woman, has certain entitlements which are very well reflected even in Article 15 Clause 3 of the Constitution, which says that special measures can be taken for the benefit of women, children and the underprivileged class.
It means if they deemed fit it right, individually or collectively, they are entitled to get it mentioned that they are not he or she, they are they.
Yes.
We talk about biases and discrimination against transgender, and then we have details available that there is insensitivity among the institutions. The individuals are not properly trained, they are not sensitive enough to deal with their issues. Are there some kind of legal hurdles if there are people who are sympathetic towards transgenders, if there are police people who are sympathetic and who are ready to help them out?
As we have discussed, that the substantive criminal and procedural law are not expressly catering to the needs of the transgender victims of crime. Many a times, the police personnel also face problems in identifying as to how they should go about a complaint being filed by a transgender person. For instance, if a transgender approaches the police station with a complaint of getting sexually molested, now many a times the police personnel is confused that this person is looking like a man but is in the attire of a female. How should we go about it further? Because ordinarily the Code of Criminal Procedure states that a complaint of sexual offense against a woman should be investigated only by a woman. So in these situations, the help of a counselor can be taken. A counselor should be made available and the counselor can ask that trans person as to how he or she identifies. If he identifies himself as a woman, then the legal remedies available to a woman victim should be given. But if a trans person says that I am a man and I have faced molestation, sexual assault, there again we have a legal remedy because section 377 IPC talks about unnatural offences. So if the police personnel are sensitized, they can be told that either ways a transgender can be sexually abused. If it is a woman, we have to identify that she's a trans woman and then give her the legal respite available to victims of sexual crimes. And if she says that I am not a woman, I am a man, then the case can be booked under section 377 IPC. Another dimension to it is when a transgender is accused of a crime. Now, if a transgender is accused of a crime and that transgender happens to be a woman, then a question often arises that our procedural law says that a woman can be arrested only by a female cop and a woman cannot be arrested after sunset and before sunrise. So with regards to transgender women who are accused of criminal acts, these parameters should also be kept into mind.
It means whatever legal provisions are there, to implement those provisions, we need to have informed, sensitive people in place, whether it is police station or any other institution which is supposed to deliver justice.
Yes, sir, rightly said that people have to be sensitized because we cannot exclude them. They also have their set of problems. And the way we are addressing to the problems of men and women, we are also responsible towards the problems of transgenders.
Yeah, it means they or he or she, they need to be acknowledged as human beings first.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Sharanjit. So we discussed the intersection between transgender and crime. We will continue with these conversations around issues of transgenders. Thank you very much for joining us.